Hi, I'm Caden, here with my brother,
Cal,
and you're watching Eating W's.
eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
So, on today's episode of Eating W's, we have our first weekly recap for week 1 of the NFL season. Finally here, done and happened, and man, was it insane to say the least.
Disappointing for some. Very
Disappointing for a lot of upsets, a lot of crazy things happened. So just a quick breakdown of how we're going to kind of do these instead of talking about every game like we did last year, just because those made the episodes kind of go long. And I have a super busy schedule this semester in school and other stuff and internships, so I just don't really have the time to edit those long games. So we're just going to talk about, of course, the Packers and Vikings game, but then we're going to pick our top 3 to 5 games outside of that and also talk about those games. And then for the rest of them, we'll just kind of give like quick updates and then flash the scores at the end of the episode. And you'll kind of see how it goes, and hopefully this works out well, but I think it really will. I think it will work out well. So before we jump into those games, though, we just have a few pieces of news. So we have a couple of extensions here. To celebrate the start of the season, the Raiders gave Darren Waller a 3-year, $51 million extension. And the Colts also gave Quentin Nelson a 4-year, $80 million extension, with $60 million of that being guaranteed. So big money for the guard, but he deserves it. He is easily the best guard in the league, in my opinion.
And he becomes the highest paid guard in the NFL.
As he should be. And then one quick signing, big one, with the 49ers signing running back Marlon Mack. And a big reason for that is a couple of injuries we have to talk about, which is the 49ers' previous running back, Elijah Mitchell, had an injury that'll keep him out for 2 months. And then now the Cowboys quarterback, Dak Prescott, just had thumb on his surgery, which will have him out for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So a couple of big injuries right there, especially for the Cowboys, pretty much ending their season as efficiently as it started, because they officially got whooped by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Sunday Night Football.
Even before Dak's injury, their offense was not looking very good.
So you pay Dak all that money, and then you lose all those other weapons around him, and then now he gets injured. Just a tough string of luck for the Cowboys. But we'll see if they can turn it around and jump into our first game that we want to kind of give an extensive review of, which is the Saints and Falcons, a game in which the Saints won 27-26. Now, it looked like the Falcons were going to win pretty much this entire game. I actually was really impressed by how their offense looked, because I thought it was just going to be Kyle Pitts or nothing. And Kyle Pitts ended up not really doing much, which is probably because the defense was planning to neutralize him. But I thought Mariota looked pretty good. I thought that the rookie Drake London played well, and overall the Falcons just really impressed me. But at the end of the day, they are the Atlanta Falcons, and they choked away a 17-point lead, I want to say, at one point. So Falcons are going to be Falcons.
It was 26-10.
26-10. Either way, Falcons are going to be Falcons.
Yep, they went and they did what they do best, and that's choke away the game. You know, their big thing was what gave them the lead was Cordero Patterson. Had almost 100 yards rushing, over 100 yards in total scrimmage yards, and they just kind of went away from him at the end of the game. So they need to learn how to close up games.
And the Saints went to Michael Thomas, who had 2 huge touchdowns to end that game and close that deficit towards the end there. So really good to see him back. I'll be the first to admit I was a little bit of a Michael Thomas hater. I thought even if he did come back, he was going to be subpar, but at least for this game, he really proved me wrong. I thought he played really well overall.
And you see at the end of the game, Jameis Winston, when he had his post-game interview, he said he just was in pain. He had pain all over. There was pain everywhere. That was what his post-game press conference said.
God damn Jameis Winston. What a coup.
He's always got something good to say.
I love it, love it, love it. So moving on, we got an NFC North game with the 49ers heading to Chicago to take on the Bears in the rainiest game this week. They were literally squeegeeing piled water off the field.
Puddles of water were building up on the field.
It was crazy, but the Bears pick up a 19-10 win after being down 10-0 at halftime. So in the second half, they not only found a way to shut out the Niners, but also put up almost 20 points. Would have been 20 points if it wasn't for a missed extra point. But overall, crazy game by the Bears to be so flat in the beginning and then come out and kill it in the second half. But I thought Justin Fields looked decent. He made a couple of bad mistakes. It was a rainy game, so it was hard to really gauge how well he played. But overall, I thought he looked decent.
Yeah, I thought that he did okay. He had 2 touchdown passes, which were key in their comeback. And then also Trey Lance had 2 killer interceptions, including a near pick six to Eddie Jackson that helped set up one of those touchdowns. So, I mean, I think it's more the 49ers lost the game than the Bears won the game. But, you know, he's still going to go out there and win it. So that was good for Fields to get a win under his belt, because I sure hope he's not going to have one for week 2.
Yep. One little interesting tidbit is both Amon-Ra for the Lions and Equanimous for the Bears had a touchdown on Sunday.
And they were actually just, I think, 5 minutes apart.
Really? So both the St. Brown brothers pick up a touchdown I was about to say and a win, but the Lions did not win. But one of them picked up a win, and the Lions picked up a half-decent game. So moving on, we got an AFC North matchup with the Steelers going to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals and picking up a shocker win, 23-20 in overtime. Now, of course, the big storyline with this game is I am a long snapper in college. I am currently a college long snapper, and I want to thank the Bengals for showing people that long snappers really do matter, because they had their long snapper go out with an injury and had a backup tight end playing long snapper for them, which led to a slow snap leading to an blocked extra point rather. And then in overtime, a high snap, which led to a bad hold, and a shanked kick. Both things would win the game, but neither of them were made because of a shaky snap. So
yeah, the long snap, it's a specific art, and there's only one guy on a roster that usually is able to do it well. And if that guy goes down, boy, you almost just want to start going for it. I mean, because if you got a bad long snapper, I mean, that really makes a lot of difference. You got to have the timing down, you got to have the speed and velocity down, and then you got to have the chemistry with your holder and the punter. So, I mean, there were some bad snaps on punts. They didn't run down the clock in overtime because they were worried about rushing the snap. They wanted to give him enough time to snap it, and it just goes to show.
Didn't really change much.
It didn't change much, but it goes to show that if they had their long snapper, I think the Bengals would have won that game. But without him, they lost it.
Certainly. You can't put it just on him, though, because the Bengals were shaky from the start. I want to say Joe Burrow had either 3 or 4 interceptions.
Yeah, 4 interceptions
and a lost fumble. So when you have that many turnovers and you are just getting destroyed in the turnover battle like that, not much you can do about it to begin with. So moving on, we had a non-divisional matchup with the New York Giants hosting the Tennessee Titans and picking up the Giants going to Tennessee to take on the Titans, but picking up a giant win nevertheless, 21-20, behind a wrist 2-point conversion at the end of the game, which they converted and then were able to hold the Titans out of field goal range with about a minute and some left. But the Titans had a lot of timeouts at the end there, so it was really cool to see the Giants not only risk it for the biscuit and have it pay off with that 2-point conversion, but then behind a shaky defense actually be able to hold that Titans offense out of field goal range and pick up the win for the new Brian Daboll era there in New York. And it was just so crazy to see. I didn't expect it to happen at all.
You really don't see that very often, where the teams go for 2 in the win. I mean, you see it in preseason a lot because nobody wants to tie and go to overtime in the preseason. But to see it in week 1, that was a very risky move, and that just goes to show that there's a new era in New York, and it just brings a whole new energy. And I mean, if he had missed the 2-point conversion, it would just be looked at as, it's the same old Giants. But Saquon was able to get in for the 2-point conversion, and he had a huge game. So he looked like 2019 Saquon with over 180 yards. And the Giants may be a team to reckon with.
Yeah, I think it was an overall relatively sloppy game from the Titans comparative to what they can usually do on the offense and defensive side of the ball. But I think that you definitely need to give some credit to the Giants as well. They looked good. So now moving on to a game Callan probably doesn't really want to talk about, but the Packers went in to Minnesota and lost to the Vikings 23-7. Now, I'll be the first to admit it that the Packers were beat to hell. They were missing a lot of people. David Bakhtiari didn't play. Alan Lazard didn't play. They, of course, didn't have Devontae Adams to begin with.
We were also down Elton Jenkins and John Runyon, who's our starting right tackle and starting left guard, respectively. So we had 3 starters out on the offensive line.
So it was, of course, rough and looking bad from the start. But I'm also not going to discount the Vikings. I was actually pretty impressed with how we played. I've kind of gotten used to them to the point where I was almost ready for some disappointment. I'm not going to lie. I thought overall we played well. I really liked how we looked on offense. Made me a little nervous at first there, starting with that huge touchdown drive and then totally stalling out, because that was a very Mike Zimmer thing to do, to start hot and then just totally plateau the rest of the game. But we were able to pick it back up on offense. The Packers decided to just not guard Justin Jefferson, I'm pretty sure.
It was a bold strategy. It did not work out for them.
It did not pay off, Cotton. So overall, I'm very happy they did that, but that's something that they should probably work on as the season goes on, is guarding the number 1 receiver.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, overall, I was just really happy with the game in general.
I was not very happy with the game. Wasn't very happy with the game plan. I think that we got behind and abandoned the run when the run was working very well. Aaron Jones only had 8 touches, and he was averaging over 9 yards per carry on his few carries that he had. So I think a little more Aaron Jones. I said that was the key to the victory, and we did not use that key. So I'm not sure. I hope we go back to the drawing board and get it figured out before Chicago.
Yeah. And then don't get me wrong, I know that the defensive line and front 7 in general for Minnesota played pretty well, but considering how beat up the Packers line was, I wish we would have seen a little more pressure on Rodgers. But something that I saw that I really liked was our secondary actually held up pretty well, and there was a couple of situations where I would call it a coverage sack, which is something I did not expect to say, so that was pretty cool.
And you got bailed out by a big drop.
I don't think that would have changed much in the long run, but it definitely would have flipped momentum early.
It would have had a momentum switch.
Yeah. So moving on to the final game we are going to talk about, and the final game of Week 1 was the Broncos heading into Seattle and losing in the Russell Wilson revenge game 17-16 to the Seattle Seahawks. And I don't want to discard the Seahawks because they played well for what they should have been, considering the huge transition they took this offseason, huge downward transition, I would say. But overall, I think this was much more of the Broncos playing bad. One thing I noted a little bit during our preseason episodes was how few star players there were. And one of those star players that didn't play any snaps in the preseason was Russell Wilson, which really surprised me because you got this guy coming in. It's the first time ever in the NFL that he's had to learn a whole new offense. And you're not going to give him any live reps. Even with a brand new head coach, you're not going to give him any live reps for the regular season. That kind of was a head scratcher for me, and I think it really came back to bite them. Because he played well, of course, as Russell Wilson would do anywhere, anytime. But I just thought there was times where he looked like he wasn't ready to run that offense, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, it's like there really needs to be some like exhibition games before the season starts, like some games that don't count, where you could get some guys in there, work out some kinks. If there was something
That's
like
a good
that.
idea.
Yeah,
they should implement something.
They should really do something like that. I think it really would have helped Green Bay too if we had a couple of those. But Wilson did not look very comfortable in that offense. He did have a couple of big throws, but other than that, the big throw was Jerry Jeudy had a 60-yard touchdown catch, and that looked really smooth. But all around, he did not look very comfortable in that offense.
Yeah, certainly saw the arm talent, just a little bit of the timing's off, you could tell. But nevertheless, big win by the Seahawks, so good for them. And then some of the other games that we just kind of wanted to touch on was, of course, the Colts and Texans ending in a tie, which is just really good for the Texans, even though they should have won, but really bad for the Colts because they also should have won from the start.
Texans were up 20-6 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, so crazy that ended in a tie. But there was a lot of other fun games to watch, so I'll flash some of the scores across the screen now while we're talking and during the intro. But nevertheless, don't forget to subscribe if you like this video, and look out tomorrow for our Week 2 preview videos. But until that, don't forget
to eat the W.